Good morning, Year 6. Welcome to another reading lesson. Before we make a start, I'd like to say a special well done to those of you who have recorded yourself or sent in a voice note of you reading a page from the text. Please make sure you pick one page. It can be whatever page you like, but it must be from the pages we are reading, so pages 60 to 65. You must pick one page and record yourself on Seesaw. Your teachers would love to listen to you reading, so please make sure you are doing that. So let's start today with our vocabulary lesson. Our first word, which Miss Ad's going to start with, is protective. And this is an adjective, and it's intended to protect someone or something. So in a sentence, you could say, with the current situation, nurses are wearing protective equipment to keep themselves safe. Protective. We then have jerked. And this is a verb which means to move very suddenly or to make something move suddenly. So you could say in a sentence, the plane jerked forward and the passengers fell to one side. Jerked. We then have another verb, and this is engraved. And this means to cut or carve a text or design onto the surface of a hard object. So for example, in a sentence, I could say, Fred's watch was engraved with his initials. Engraved. We have a verb, and that's surreptitiously. Surreptitiously. And this is a way that avoids attention or notice towards something. So it's being quite secretive. So as you can see here, you could describe the boy as surreptitiously hiding answers under his sleeve so he could cheat in an exam. Surreptitiously. We then have furrowed. And this is an adjective to describe making deep lines appear on your face. And it's usually above your eyebrows. So you can see here Miss Ahad is furrowing her eyebrows. Next we have belched, and this is a verb to describe large amounts of substances such as gas or smoke coming out of something. For example, I could say the car's exhaust belched and the neighbours could see smoke coming from that direction. Belched. We have an adjective, and that's to describe someone as having quite a lot of pride. So you could say proprietorial. That's a word, proprietorial. And this is behaving as if someone owned something. They're being quite possessive. So you could describe this business owner here as having proprietorial pride over his business, as he spent a lot of time trying to make it perfect. We have fumbled. And this means to handle or do something quite clumsily. Fumbled. Together, Miss Ad's going to have her turn and you're going to follow after me. Protective. Engraved. Surreptitiously. Surreptitiously. Borrowed. Belched. Proprietorial. Fumbled. Now going to read our activity together. I'll read our text together. So please make sure you have your text ready at hand. If you're following on a computer, that's absolutely fine, or you can follow along with me and just read from the video. So let's have a go at that.
Please make sure you follow along the video with Miss Ahad. We're going to read the text together. If Miss Ahad pauses and asks you to continue reading, you need to take ownership of the reading, just like you would in class. So let's start. Fire. The grubs, which is also food, when mixed with the cocoa beans and pounded with a clean stick, pounded means hit repeatedly, turn into paste, which if you squinted and were of an optimistic temperament, look like flour and water. Here, it's saying if you had a positive outlook, the grub would look like flour and water. It's not actually flour and water, but you're being quite positive, optimistic. Now, we just need to make a fire and cook them, said Fred. Just, said Con. We need a flint, said Fred. We need kindling, said Lila. And matches, said Con. So flint, kindling and matches will help to make a fire. A flint is almost like a hard rock, and it's used with steel to produce an igniting spark. Whereas kindling, it's like sticks or twigs, and it's used to light fire, so almost like wood as well that you could use. I'll do the kindling, said Fred. Most of the wood surrounding them had dried since the rain the night before. He held the hem of his cricket jumper in his teeth and made a hammock for the wood. The night in the jungle had not improved the taste of the wool. He came back to the clearing and tipped the wood into a pile a few paces away from the den. There were flints in there, said Lila. We could rub away the moss and use them to make a spark. Moss is like almost small plants. It's like the green bushy stuff that grow off that's on wood, and you can see that on the side of tree trunks as well. Flints don't go off. Flints aren't enough by themselves, said Fred. I've tried. You need a bit of steel. Lila ducked into the den to fetch the flint. Con was staring at Fred's watch. What's that made of? Fred stared down at the watch, covering it protectively with his hand. Glass. And steel, he said. My father gave it to me when I went to boarding school. I'd like you now to continue from but it's broken to the end of it's my watch. So pause the video and continue reading. And then Miss Ahad's going to continue. Well done. If you read a word incorrectly or missed a word, please go back into your sentence and reread it to understand the meaning in context. Remember, making self-corrections is a great way to learn rapidly. I know, but I've never lit a fire before, she said. Not even the ones in the fireplaces at home. Not even on bonfire night, Fred asked. Not allowed. There was longing and hunger in her eyes. She looked away from him, turning the flint over and over in her hand as if it was a jewel. But there was something written in her face. Fred thought something in a code, but he couldn't begin to read. Here. Slowly he undid the strap. He held the watch in his fist, surreptitiously tracing the letters on the back with his thumb. Surreptitiously tracing the letters, which means unnoticeably. He didn't want to get caught tracing the letters because obviously that watch had sentimental value to him. Con watched in silence. He put it in her palm. I get second go. Lila heaped shredded leaves and dried grass in a pile. You do it over that, she said, so the spark has something to catch. Con struck the back of the watch against the stone. Fred winced, which means almost kind of gave off a little cry as he gave over the watch. She overshot and dung the flint into her own skin. She said nothing and tried again. She bit down on her tongue, concentrating. Her eyebrows furrowed so deeply they nudged against her eyelashes, striking and striking until her fingers were raw. Furrowed is one of our key vocabulary words. Let's see if you can remember what that means. Pause the video and have a go. Well done if you said it means to make deep lines appear on your face, and it's usually above your eyes, so around your eyebrow area. Suddenly, flint and steel let off a tiny spark. Con was so stunned she fumbled the splint, which means she was acting a little bit crazy to handle it. Again, shrieked Max. Again! The spark came again, a brief flare into the world that vanished as it came. It needs to be lower over the kindling, said Lila. Con struck again and again. The spark caught against a blade of grass, which caught against another. Fred's heart leapt and he dropped to his stomach and blew on the scrap of fire, terrified he would blow it right out. The flame faltered. Faltered in this context, it means it lost strength or movement. No, don't die, said Con. So now from Lila added a handful of dry moss to the end of each other. You're going to continue reading. So pause the video and continue reading. We could sleep in shifts, said Con, to make sure it doesn't go out. She looked at the fire with proprietorial pride, which means quite possessive pride, as if she owned it. We made that by ourselves. Fred put the watch quietly in his pocket. It was scratched now and deeply dented, but inside his pocket he clutched it so tightly it dug a circular bruise into his palm, which means it made a circular bruise into the palm of his hand. It's the most beautiful fire I've ever seen, said Lila. Yes, said Con, by far. Max bit lightly at Lila's arm. Can we eat now? I'm so hungry I might die. Fred scrambled in the dust with his nails until he found a flat stone and balanced it, wobbling dangerously on 4 green wood sticks over the centre of the flames. Lila divided the grub paste into 4 balls and spread them on the stone. Eventually the pancakes began to bubble, so that's what they were making. The grub paste was pancake batter. Lila poked them. They're getting harder, she said. And they smell like a shoe, said Con. That probably means they are done. One of the trees near the den had vast fleshly leaves as big as serving dishes. Fred pulled 4 of them down and dropped a grub pancake onto each one. They were hot to touch and gooey. They are probably best while they are so hot. You can't taste them, said Fred. He bit off half the pancake, trying not to chew too much. It tasted disconcertingly animal. It was, he thought, like eating porridge mixed with fingernail grim, but it was better, wildly, infinitely better than nothing. Again, showing that he kind of appreciates what he's been given, because obviously they're somewhere that they don't know where to get food, and it's quite difficult. So quite a little bit being appreciative of the food he's getting. Con nibbled the corner of hers. She grimaced. Oh, grimace, we know what that means. That's our key that was one of our key vocabulary words from a few weeks ago. Pause the video and have a look. Do you remember what that means? Well done if you said it means to make a facial expression which shows the anger or disapproval. In this context, you would say that Con was actually disapproving of the pancakes, not angry. So she was making a disapproving face. But she didn't spit it out. To be honest, it's not that much worse than school dinner, she said, and she smiled, half a smile. So from Max kept his food scrunched in his fist till the end of would get lost, I'd like you to continue reading. So pause the video and continue reading. Well done, Year 6, you're doing great. They got up, all four of them standing close together in the gathering dark, and began looking for a suitably large tree far enough for their fire, but not far enough away to risk getting lost. This one's big, said Fred. And this one, said Con. The trees were immense, which means gigantic. The trees were immense, stretching at least as high as the church. We could make that one the boys' toilet, and this one's the girls', said Con. Lila's smile was sudden and enormous. It showed that one of her teeth was wonky and she had a dimple in her cheek. We could call it the Lavo tree. It wasn't terribly funny, but once Fred started laughing, he couldn't stop. Con choked and had to bite her fist. Max's laughter sent a ribbon of snot flying out across the glade. They laughed loudly enough to scare the birds and to make the distant monkeys roar angrily from their night perches in the trees. Well done. We are now going to move on to our activity. So please make sure you have your activity at hand ready to answer questions together.
Now that we have read out the text together, we're going to do our activity, which is answering literal questions. Remember, we're going to start with the true and false section first. Ms. Aha is going to model one statement with you, and then you're going to pause the video and have a go at the rest. Come back to the video, want to mark that section, and then we're going to continue. So the first statement here is the grub turns into something solid when mixed with cocoa beans and pounded with a clean stick. Well, I remember pounded means hit repeatedly, and the grub is almost like food. So let's have a look if that's true or false. So from the text here, the grub, when mixed with cocoa beans and pounded with a clean stick, turns into a paste, which if you squinted and were of an optimistic temperament, looked like flour and water. Well, actually, this would be true if solid wasn't in there. But actually, I would describe paste as being liquid, so therefore that is actually false. Now, I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at the rest of the true and false statements. Please remember to come back to the video to mark your answers. Okay, so now that you have completed true and false, we're going to mark those together. Remember, please do not continue watching the video if you haven't finished, showing yourself that integrity. Next, we have a flint is needed to help start the fire, and that actually is true because on the first page here, Fred says we need a flint, and we know what a flint is. It is almost like a hard rock that helps to ignite, that is used with steel to help ignite a fire, a spark. Next, we have Fred's watch was the only gift his father had chosen himself. That is actually true because his father usually would send him to Harrods with his secretary to pick out a gift. So this was the only gift his father had chosen himself, which is why it had sentimental value to him. Next, we had Con had never lit a fire before, and that is true because Con was actually feeling quite eager. She really wanted to have the first go, and that's on page 61 for that piece of evidence. She says, "Can I have first try?" So we know that means she hadn't lit a fire before, because it also means she hadn't seen a bonfire, or she doesn't have a fireplace at home. Next, we have Lila divided the grub into 8 balls. That's actually false because she divided it into 4 balls because there's 4 of them. And then lastly, we have the pancakes were cold and hard to touch. Well, the pancakes were hard to touch, but they were actually very hot, so that is false. Well done if you got all of those correct. Please go back and mark through. If you haven't got some of those correct, that's absolutely fine. Just make those corrections. Now we're going to start with the find and copy section. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you are going to continue the video. Sorry, you're going to continue the activity and only come back to the video once you have finished. So let's start. We need to look for the word on page 59. We've been given the page, so we know that the word is going to come from this page. That's 59, and it's the word that suggests that Fred is trying to keep his watch safe. So I'm going to turn to page 59, which is here, and I'm going to look for the word that suggests that Fred is trying to keep his watch safe. So I know down here is where Lila was asking about the watch. So Fred stared down at the watch, covering it protectively with his hand. Glass, and still, he said, my father gave it to me when I went to boarding school. Well, I know protectively means to protect someone or something, so keep them safe. So here, definitely the word that I would write in is protectively. So protectively. Now I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at the rest of the find and copy. Come back to the video to mark your answers. Please show yourself that integrity to mark along honestly. Okay, number 2. So that asks me to turn to page 61. So I'm going to turn to page 61. And it's asking me to look for the phrase now. So before it was just one single word. Now we're looking for a phrase, which means a sentence that tells us that Fred is tracing letters on his watch, trying to avoid attention from the others. Well, I remember a key word that we had from our key vocabulary, and that was surreptitiously, and that means unnoticeably. So I might be looking for something along the lines of that. Let's see if that's on that page. Fred thought something is in a code he couldn't begin to read. Here, slowly, he undid the strap. He held the watch to his fist, surreptitiously tracing the letters on the back with his thumb. Well, here definitely would be that phrase, surreptitiously tracing the letters on the back with his thumb. So I'm going to copy that phrase in because it tells me here that Fred is trying to avoid attention from the others whilst he traces the letters at the back of his watch. So I'm going to copy that in. Tracing the letters on the back with his thumb. Okay, and I know that phrase is correct because surreptitiously means unnoticeably, so doing something quite secretively. Now, we turn to page 63. Remember, this is where you're going to find what the statement is asking you, and that is the phrase, again, it's a sentence, that tells us Fred's watch is damaged. So I'm going to turn to page 63 first, and I need to look for the phrase that tells us that Fred's watch is damaged. It doesn't go, I should have done this. And it's here. It was scratched and deeply dented. That suggests to us that actually Fred's watch had now been damaged as it was used to help spark the fire. So I'm going to copy in it was scratched and deeply dented. And then next we have page 64, so we need to turn to page 64 and we need to look for the phrase that suggests, on page 64, that suggests that Max didn't want to share his food. So we need to look for a phrase, not a word, so a sentence. That's here. Oh, it's here. I don't like sharing, he said. And that suggests he doesn't want to share. So I'm going to copy that in. I don't like sharing. Okay, well done if you've got those correct. please make sure you mark your answers. If you haven't got those correct, please go back in with a different colour pen and write those in correctly. Remember to look at the page numbers because that's there to help you look for the phrase or the word the question's asking you to. So now we're going to turn to questions. I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you're going to pause the video and then we're going to discuss all the answers together. So the first question is, what equipment did the children need to start a fire? I'm going to turn to page 58. So I'm going to bring 58 here. And we're going to read through the grubs when mixed with the cocoa beans and pounded with a clean stick turned into a paste, which if you squinted and were of an optimistic temperament, looked like flour and water. Now we just make a fire and cook them, said Fred. Just, said Con. We need a flint, said Fred. We need kindling, said Lila. And matches, said Con. We know that a flint is a hard rock that is used with steel to help ignite a fire. Kindling is some sticks and also wood that's used to help make the fire, and then matches to help set a fire. So I know that is the equipment that they need here. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write a flint, kindling, and matches. Now, you're going to pause the video and have a go at the rest of the questions. Come back to the video once you have finished all questions. Remember to show yourself that integrity that you can mark your work honestly. Okay, so the next question is asking us to turn to page 59, and the question is, what was Fred's watch made of? And it's on page 59. So here is where Lila is questioning him about the watch. Flints aren't enough, said Fred. I've tried. You need a bit of steel. Lila ducked into the den to fetch the flint. Con was staring at Fred's watch. Oh, this is Con that noticed the watch, not Lila. What's that made of? Fred stared down at the watch, covering it protectively with his hand. Glass and steel. So I know that the watch is made out of glass and it's made out of steel. So that's what I'm going to write in. Glass and steel. Stop. Next we have, why was Fred's watch sentimental to him? Sentimental means something of value. It meant it was very special to him. So we're going to turn to page 60. And I know that I remember his father bought that watch for him, but why is it especially, it means more to him than just his father buying it. So let's have a read. Fred jerked his hand back. His father never bought his birthday gift. He left it to his secretary to take Fred to Harris and pick out something sensible. This was the only gift Fred could remember his father choosing himself. So that piece of evidence here would help me. This is the only gift Fred could remember his father choosing himself, and he had it engraved with Fred's initials. So why was Fred's watch sentimental to him? I would go with actually that it's the only gift Fred's father had bought himself. Sorry, not bought, sorry, choosing himself. So it was the only gift Fred's father had chosen himself. The next statement here asks us to look at page 62, and it's, the fire made a noise like an idea being born, a crackle that sounded like hope, and sent up a column of flames. What literacy technique has been used to describe the fire? So here we're looking at literacy techniques. Well, I know from this sentence taken from the text here, the evidence taken from the text, this is actually personification. And the reason why it's personification is because it's giving the fire human-like characteristics. Can a fire make noise like an idea being born? I think definitely the fire cannot make noises of an idea being born. So comparing it to humans thinking about new ideas, a crackle that sounded like hope. Again, giving it that personification, human-like characteristic, and a column of flames. So definitely I would put in here personification. So the fire is given human-like characteristics, and that's how it's being described. Then next we have, what did Fred compare the taste of the pancakes to? And it's on page 64. So I need to turn to page 64. Okay, they probably, that's why they got he bit off half the pancake time too much. It tasted disconcertingly animals. He thought like eating porridge mixed with fingernail brim. So he compared the pancake tasting like eating porridge mixed with fingernail brim. So that's what I'm going to write in. So eating mixed with fingernail brim. That's definitely not some pancakes that I'd like to try. So for number 5, eating porridge mixed with fingernail brim was what Fred compared the taste of the pancakes to. And then lastly, we need to look at page 5, that's part of our next question. So, page 63 to 64, and we are going to look at the pieces of the points given here, and then we need to find some evidence for that. So my first point is Max was feeling hungry. I know I need to use pages 63 to 64 to find that piece of evidence. So the evidence here is I'm so hungry I might, can we eat now? I'm so hungry I might die. So that's what I'm going to, and that's on page 63. Sorry, 64. So that piece of evidence suggests that Max was feeling hungry. Again, I'm so hungry I might die, telling us here that he's feeling very hungry. And then next we have Con disapproved of the pancakes. So again, disapproving, which means she didn't like it, or she didn't love the pancakes. So we need to find a piece of evidence from page 63 to 64 to suggest that. And I'm going to go with this piece of evidence is she grimaced, which means showing facial expression of disapproving something. So she grimaced, but she didn't spit it out. Okay, so that's your piece of evidence that will go with this point of Con disapproved of the pancakes grimace, showing that she showed the facial expression of disapproving something. So your extended answer question here is to ask you to look at page 61, so you use page 61, and you need to look at how is Con made to seem like she is adamant to start the fire. Explain 2 ways using evidence from the text. So the first way, so you need to look at page 61. So you could say Con watched in silence, again, watching what he's doing with the watch. What? That's one of the points that I've drawn off from this piece of evidence. Con watched in silence, watching what Fred was doing with the watch. Let's see if we can find any more. You put it in a second. Remember what the question was? It was, how does Con made to seem like she's adamant to start the fire? Explain 2 ways using evidence from the text. Again, she bit her tongue, concentrating her eyebrows furrowed so deeply they nudged against her eyelashes. Again, showing she's keen and focused. Suddenly, Con was so stunned, she fumbled the flint again, showing that she's in control of the fire, or she is acting a bit crazy as well. You could also use evidence from page 60, and that's, can I have first try, showing that she's keen. I know, but I've never lit a fire before, she said, not even the ones in the fireplaces at home. Another piece of evidence showing she'd like first try. Okay, so With this, you are now going to write up your extended answer questions. I've drawn up a few points for you, and your teachers cannot wait to read those. Okay, so remember to send in your picking a page from the text, reading. You must make sure you voice record it, or you can record yourself if you want to, reading a page from the text. Remember to use the expression and have the tone of your voice as if you are one of the characters if you're reading some dialogue. So I'd love to see all of your responses, and I cannot wait to hear you all reading. Take care. Bye for now.